A little over a month ago, we unveiled an aggressive plan to take back our parks and improve public safety throughout the city. We redeployed HPD, 175 patrol officers from desk jobs to beat patrols. We increased the number of park rangers. We implemented an overtime program for roving HPD patrols in targeted parks and created a new patrol division dedicated to the Central Business District. And let me just say that I've even added more money for overtime for HPD. This was in response to our growing Kush problem, as well as some other problems as well. 16 people have overdosed in one day at Herman Park, and there were growing complaints about drug users at the downtown library, City Park, City Hall, Peggy Point, Moody Park, and Metro Rail stations. And although the problem has not been eliminated, the stepped-up patrols are having a positive impact. According to the daily reports I receive, and I do get them daily, one in the morning and one in the evening, Herman Park is all but free of the drug users that have been scaring away families and joggers early this summer. We are also seeing marked improvement at other locations. When we unveiled this plan, I said that the stepped-up patrols would help in the short term. The drug users are not gone. They have merely moved somewhere else. The long game requires addressing the availability of Kush. At the time, undercover investigators had already started targeting street dealers and the stores that sell the product. We could not talk about what was going on for fear of jeopardizing the investigation. And through collaboration with many of our partners, the City Attorney's Office, Harris County Attorney Vince Ryan has been working on this problem for a couple of years and doing it in a very aggressive fashion. The Harris County District Attorney's Office, the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who's represented here today, the Comptroller's Office. Through all of these collaborative efforts, we are making progress, and even more progress needs to be made, but we're working in a collaborative effort. We're talking about it now and doing it this morning. Tuesday, 6 individuals were arrested and charged with engaging in organizing criminal activity and falsifying drug test results. 2 other individuals are still wanted at this time. They face charges of delivery of a controlled substance and possession with intent to deliver. $230,000 in U.S. currency, 30 gold bars valued at a little over $40,000, 1 9mm pistol, 3 vehicles, and over 30 pounds of illegal narcotics have been seized. 8 civil injunctions have been filed against various stores, and more are expected. 10 squads from HPD's narcotics units and 8 HPD patrol divisions were involved. Additional support came from the City Attorney's Office, the Harris County Attorney, Harris County District Attorney, the Texas Attorney General, and the State Comptroller. There is the perception that Kush, also known as Spice and K2, is safe. It is marketed as potpourri, but it is in fact a very dangerous synthetic drug that contains synthetic chemicals. There are more than 100 different types of chemicals that can be used to produce it. It became an illegal substance in 2012, and it's more than 100 times more potent than marijuana. We still have much work to do to get this substance off our streets and halt the overdose that are taxing our emergency medical services. And I want to commend all of the law enforcement agencies and officers who have been involved to this point, and look forward to their continued assistance going forward. At this particular time, let me bring up Chief Curran, who is standing in for acting for Chief Montalvo, who right now is in Chicago, just talking with them on some other law enforcement initiatives that we want to incorporate in the city of Houston. So at this time, Chief Curran.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for everybody showing up today. Part of the thing that occurred back on June 23rd was, of course, you know, the Kush Corner there at Herman Park. Our investigators and undercover people were actually out there in the park doing undercover operations on that particular day, trying to make some arrests. After that event, we got some great tips on, of course, our Houston, StopDrugsHouston.org. We got a lot of good tips, but from the information that we're working with some of the transient population out there, we were able to get information of where this was occurring. That's when Chief Montalvo directed me and the Narcotics Division to see what we could do to stop some of this. Our folks, basically under the leadership of an administrative unit within the Narcotics Division, the FAST unit, the Forfeit Abatement Support Team, under the direction of Sergeant Marsha Todd, They began to do an investigation and tracking this information. We put officers out to begin looking at the different stores that were selling this and talking to the people on the metro line where we felt was being the part of the distribution. Those folks got more information, and then we realized we had to bring in a lot more resources throughout the city to help us find out what was going on. At that time, we got the DRT officers, our differential response team, and some of our TAC teams. Those were brought in and helped assisted the narcotics division. About a third to half of the narcotics division began working on this because it was so invasive and so large. So we began that, and as we soon found out, the Spice Boutique, the two gentlemen up here, the Dang brothers, own those shops. We found that a vast majority of our problems in our parks were coming from those two locations. So these fine people of the narcotics division began to work with, of course, the city attorney, the county attorney, the district attorney, and something new for us is using the attorney general from the state of Texas. Those people began working, and we also reached out to the Texas Comptroller's Office, which we found information that helped us arrest several individuals on some of their information. So this all began, the mayor talked about some of the things that we confiscated on Tuesday, which is considerable, but Marcia Todd's going to speak up here later on, and she's going to inform you we've got a lot more. Again, this is still an ongoing and active investigation. We are just showing you a part of it. We have many more things that we're working on. Can't get into the details because, you know, we still have undercover operatives out there working on that. We're going to have some other people come up here, but as the mayor said, you know, this is another fine example of the Houston Police Department and our partners working together to try to put an end to this. But again, you and the news media, we want to make sure that you get out to the people. The Crime Stoppers and this website here are very influential in some of the leads that we got in this case. Yeah, we worked some of the people on the street, but we also got great leads from the citizens out there about activities that were going on. So we want to kind of reinforce that. So make sure that you please get that out. We also handed out a handout to you that's some information from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that gets into some of the aspects of the drug. Please make sure that you pass that on to the good citizens of Houston. This is a dangerous drug. It's hurting our people, and it's making a very large medical impact in our hospitals. They see dozens of people in the emergency room each and every shift. And so we want to try to make a stop. We think we have. At this time, I'll call up the county attorney, Vince Ryan, for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you very much, Chief. As been said, all these efforts are a collaborative of a lot of different agencies of government, but the reality of it is these spice shops are really bad places selling this Kush. Kush is a very, very, very dangerous substance. And these locations were obviously selling it to people walking in off the streets, some of the people that were found in Herman Park. And so our part is, from the civil side, we are the civil attorneys for the county government, is shutting these businesses down or getting, in the case of these businesses, temporary restraining orders so they cannot continue to do what they're doing. We also, for the first time, was able to seize the bank accounts, or at least freeze the bank accounts of these locations that have right now about $450,000 cash in them. So we try to stop what they're doing. We try to work with law enforcement, work with the district attorney's office to bring criminal charges, at the same time using the civil law to restrain these businesses from continuing to do these types of criminal activities. So as it's being explained, it's collaborative. The city, the county, the criminal justice system, the civil justice system, in making sure that the people in Houston and Harris County are safe from this Kush. With that, I'll give it over to the DA.
Good morning. Many of you may have heard about Emily Bauer. 4 years ago, when she was 16 years old, she smoked synthetic marijuana and suffered a series of strokes. Last week, her parents posted a video on Facebook showing her trying to learn how to walk again. She's also trying to learn how to read and write. I'm a mother of 2 teenagers, and I want parents to know that Emily Bauer did not buy her synthetic marijuana from a drug dealer on the street. She bought it from one of these stores. These stores are nothing but drug dealers who are using storefronts to break the law. As your district attorney, I also want you to know that charging the people responsible for selling this poison to our children is a priority. I've placed these cases with Major Narcotics Division in our Special Crimes Bureau. These are our senior prosecutors who will be handling these cases because, like the mayor, we are fed up with the impact that these crimes are having on our quality of life. As you can see, this is clearly an organized criminal enterprise, and that's how we have charged these people, with engaging in organized crime. They will be prosecuted with first-degree felony charges. For years, the manufacturers of Kush were always one step ahead of us because there was a loophole in the statute. All they had to do was change one ingredient of what they were selling, and they were able to elude prosecution. We were unable to prosecute them. But last session, some prosecutors in our office teamed up with lab directors around the state and drafted a new statute. So we're back in business, and now we are one step ahead of the Kush dealers. Let me be clear, so everyone is, that just because Kush or synthetic marijuana is being sold out of a storefront, it is still illegal. And let me be clear that we will be prosecuting anyone who sells this to the fullest extent of the law. And with all of us working together, we will put these dealers out of business for good and end the Kush epidemic in Harris County. I want to thank the Houston Police Department for the excellent work that they've done on this case, and I'd like to thank Mayor Turner for his leadership on this issue.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. On behalf of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, I want to thank the mayor, the chief, city and county officials who have worked so valiantly, heroically to bring this case and others to light. In doing so, they have not only brought criminals to justice, but we believe that they are bringing what is a cultural crisis into light, and we are grateful for that as we continue in this fight. The Attorney General's role in this investigation is to file suit against individuals and entities involved in operating these Spice Boutique stores. To put it plainly, we sued the people who had direct involvement in these criminal activities. In this lawsuit, we allege that Minh Dang and Tuan Dang, as well as the businesses they control, violated the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, which specifically identifies the sale of synthetic cannabinoids for human consumption as a deceptive and misleading act. In our lawsuit, we also allege that due to the sale of these synthetic cannabinoids, the Dang brothers and their Spice Boutique stores have maintained a nuisance as defined in the Texas Civil Practice and Remedies Code. Among other things, this law provides that businesses engaging in the sale of illegal drugs risk having their operations shut down by court order for at least a period of a year. The Texas State District Court agreed with the evidence assembled so far and granted a temporary restraining order in this case, preventing Spice Boutique, the Dang brothers, from continuing to violate the law. This lawsuit is also relevant for another reason. It shows that business owners who participate in the distribution of illegal drugs can and will be held accountable, as others before me have said. In other words, it's not just the cashiers peddling these drugs that will end up getting punished. These defendants were not well-intentioned, law-abiding, productive members of our business community. They are the exact opposite of the typical businesses we find here in Houston and Harris County. More importantly, these brothers were intimately involved in the Spice Boutique businesses. They would visit their stores. They would inspect these premises. They would deliver drugs frequently, possibly delivering them on a daily basis. They knew they shouldn't do it. Officers from the Houston Police Department had previously told them to stop selling drugs illegally, yet they still did it. The Attorney General would like this case to send a message. If you are a business that sells illegal drugs, you better stop and stop putting people's lives at risk. We urge landlords to inspect their premises routinely to ensure their tenants are not selling illegal goods. We have seen too many smoke shops selling synthetic drugs they would have stopped selling these drugs had the landlords periodically inspected their premises. Landlords, you wouldn't allow your tenants to sell other stolen materials or anything else illegally, so you better not allow them to sell these illegal drugs. We urge this small segment of Houston landlords to redouble their efforts to ensure that their tenants are not selling contraband. We also urge landlords to make sure their tenants are not selling drug paraphernalia. The act of selling certain drug paraphernalia can also be criminal under Texas law. As we all know, the harm that drugs in our community cause is, in a word, staggering. Again, I want to thank the members on behalf of Attorney General Paxton of the law enforcement community who helped investigate this case so that together and collaboratively we could all first ensure that these individuals are taken off the street, and secondly, ensure that they cannot keep all the money they made selling these harmful and illegal drugs. Let the message be clear to those Texas stores selling these synthetic cannabinoids. We, as well as our law enforcement partners, will use every resource at our disposal to prosecute you and to protect Texans.
Good morning. One of the greatest challenges we've seen in reducing the threat from synthetic cannabinoids, or Kush, is changing the public's perception about the risks related to the use of these synthetic chemicals. Referring to synthetic cannabinoids as synthetic marijuana implies that Kush is similar to marijuana, but nothing could be further from the truth. From a public standpoint, a public safety standpoint, those under the influence of Kush pose a great risk to first responders because users often experience an altered mental state in which they become confused, agitated, and combative. It's a powerful hallucinogenic chemical added to plant materials, and it's extremely dangerous and highly addictive. With that in mind, the Narcotics Division has taken a strong stand in an effort to combat the ever-growing public safety issues surrounding this dangerous substance. The department and the mayor's office gave us the tools and the resources to aggressively combat this threat. And it's just that, a threat to the communities, to our families, and our children. We began a Kush initiative and dedicated personnel to focus solely on this substance. Our efforts were not only focused on the individual users and sellers, but also the stores who sell it and large-scale distributors. We've identified approximately 58 locations across the city that were suspected of selling Kush, and we filed dozens of narcotics-related charges in regards to those locations. We've recovered up to this point this year approximately 400 pounds of Kush. We not only seek criminal charges, but as you've heard, we also seek the civil penalties in these investigations. We work hand in hand with the DA's office, the Texas Attorney General, the Harris County, and the City Attorney, and currently our office has joined in the filing of 8 civil cases that have led to temporary restraining orders, temporary and permanent injunctions against the stores, the owners, and the employees who continue to sell this dangerous substance. And we have many more pending. If you look on the board, the 3 in red are the addresses that relate to this specific investigation that the Dang brothers are involved in. The other locations in black are the other injunctions that we have currently filed. But let me make clear, there are many more pending. I want to personally thank all of our narcotics personnel and other units who helped with this investigation and the arrest and warrants on Tuesday. We executed multiple search and arrest warrants simultaneously. As you can understand, an operation of this size is complex, and officer safety issues that can arise during an operation like that are vast. The officers who participated did a great job. But more specifically, I want to commend Officers Medlin and Guerra, who went above and beyond given this assignment. These officers put their lives on hold and dedicated themselves to this investigation, and their efforts made a difference and led us to where we are today. Thank you.
Sergeant, can you tell us what your name is?
Marsha, M-A-R-S-H-A, and my last name is Todd, T-O-D-D.
You're with Narcotics.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant, is this yours? Let me just say in wrapping up and then take questions from you all. A few weeks ago when we met in Herman Park, we were focusing a lot on the users, those who were in the park. And we targeted, I think, we have been targeting 5 locations. Herman Park, Peggy's Point, Main and McKinney, the library, Plaza, Moody Park, and then we've added Guadalupe Plaza Park as well. And so we're focusing on that. But you can still go to certain corners and areas in our city where you see a number of transients that are still standing, grouped up, and many of them are utilizing Kush. So it is a problem. But since then, we have decided to really aggressively focus on going to the areas of distribution, those who are selling, making the stuff available. Because the reality is that those who are utilizing Kush are heavily taxing our first responders and heavily taxing our ER services. And it's costing quite a bit. It's costing quite a bit that it's worth investing additional dollars in overtime, putting more police officers on the street, working in collaboration with our partners to really, really clamp down on this. So I want to thank everyone from the State Attorney General's office, from Ken Paxton. Certainly want to thank the county, from Devin Anderson with her office, and for Vince Ryan, who's been aggressively out there for the last couple of years. And then I especially want to thank Chief Montalvo and the men and women in blue, HPD, for just doing outstanding police work. It's not over. Let me be very clear. This is long term. This is long term, because as we work on the law enforcement side, we are still working. Mark is here, Mark Eichenbaum. We're trying to provide assistance and support for those individuals who need substance abuse treatment, mental health programs, housing, and trying to get people off the corners and into some other very substantive, positive, constructive way so that they can live their lives. So that's enough on that. And any of these individuals, HPD, Chief Curran, why don't you come back to the front, available for any questions that you all may have.
As long as you're there, let me ask you, you just said it's costing quite a lot. You got a number on that? How much is it cost?
Well, what I can say to you, when we met in Herman Park, I'd authorized some overtime. Just a few days ago, I gave the chief another $2 million in just overtime alone, and looking for some additional dollars as well. And that's to increase the number of police officers on the street. We're putting 175 that have been reassigned from HPD. Those are going into the street. The additional overtime is to increase that number and dealing with this problem, as well as with just clamping down on criminal activity in the city as a whole.
The city looked at how much does it cost to send ambulance crews out there?
I don't have that number, but I certainly can get that for you. Yeah, because it's really taxing EMS services and then the hospitals, ER. It's costing quite a bit. Okay. Gee.
Questions?
Who are you said we're still looking for 2 people. Who are you looking for?
Well,
I'm not going to give very many specifics on the investigation. We still have two employees related to this investigation who are still wanted today.
Another question. You said 58, we found 58 people who've been buying, or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, no, sir. We've identified 58 potential locations from the Stop Drugs Houston website, from other clues that people call in. We have a 4-No-Dope hotline. Patrol officers who get information will then forward it to us. So through that vast network, we've developed about 58 locations that we believe are potentially selling, and those are the ones that we began targeting.
Are those all businesses, smoke shops, that kind of thing?
It's a smorgasbord with different businesses. It could be smoke shops, sex shops like these, or convenience stores as well.
Can you identify those? Is there a map so we can see how widespread this is? You believe it's contained in one part of the city, all over?
Well, like we've said earlier, we still have undercover investigators in these locations or working these areas, so I'm not going to identify them today.
The DA was talking about the little girl who suffered some damage from it. You said that she got her Kush from one of these shops. We're referring to the spy shop.
No, a shop in general. And I think that's a misperception. People think this is dealt on the streets, but it's legitimate businesses otherwise, convenience stores, stores like that. That's what I meant.
Had Mayor or Chief, had the city not been really going after those places previously?
Well, I think what we notice is that the amount of activity has been increasing, and not just in the city of Houston, Austin, New York, places in Alabama. I mean, across the country. But I will tell you, for me, it was all the bells went off when you had 16 people falling out in Herman Park. Okay? Now, that's not to say that the problem did not already exist. But when you have 16 or a lot of EMS units going to one location, and then the next day you had more going, and then the following day you had some more going, and sometimes these was repeat, it was a clear indication that we needed to place additional emphasis on what's taking place. Now, the reality is that this stuff has been sold or distributed in the city of Houston for quite some time. County Attorney Vince Ryan has been dealing with it for the last 2 years, and I'll let him come and speak to that because he can speak to the longevity.
Previous to the Herman Park incident, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Previous to the Herman Park incident, the fire department had tracked over 900 calls on suspected push-up.
Well,
When it became apparent, and they tracked it along the rail line, when that became apparent, Metro committed more officers to police the rail line.
correct.
That was 3 months before the Herman Park incident. Did the city get involved at that time?
Well, I think if you can back up, I think over the last year there have been more than like 3,000 calls, and over half of them, or close to half of them, were Kush related. So when you look
1,500 calls?
yeah, close to about 1,500 were Kush related. And then if you look at the number of, let's say, arrests that have taken place, Kush stands at the top of that list. Above those using cocaine, marijuana, alcohol, Kush is at the top. So this has been a problem for a while, and even predating me. But the reality is that if we don't target, if we don't place the emphasis and the resources, the problem will only get worse. It's not going to get better, and all of us will pay a price. And those who are using Kush, I mean, they're more aggressive. They're more aggressive, and so you have to do something. And so we're increasing the number of police officers on the street. We're increasing the amount of overtime. We're working in collaboration because all of the partners have to be engaged. If we're going, and we're going to win this battle, but it's going to require all of us working in tandem with one another. So let me call on the county attorney. I think he can speak to it as well.
There's no question. Some of you probably covered when we went and had the lawsuits against cats. We have received many inquiries about other locations. Our lead attorney, Selena Vincent, is here, can answer specific questions. But this is such a dangerous substance, and it's marketed to youth. The example that the district attorney used is unfortunately just one example. This can kill, and young people, older people, anybody can suffer severe damage from it. So working in collaboration, we're going after some of the premier locations, but unfortunately you can go in many different locations. The law enforcement agencies keep bringing us examples of it. We're working with the other law enforcement agencies to try to address it across the board. And thank you, by the way, for the news media to be covering it like today. The more the message gets out, especially to our young people, that Kush can kill. Kush can permanently disable people. Maybe some of these purveyors will say, why don't we focus on our real business at Spice, rather than trying to purvey this horribly dangerous criminal activity and substance.
I believe the gentleman from the AG's office saying that you have 8 restraining orders now in place against various APDs.
We have, Selena, is that correct, 8?
We've sued, we have 10 lawsuits, civil lawsuits against smoke shops and convenience stores, working with HPD and the sheriff's office. That involves 20 different stores, 20 different convenience stores and smoke shops. 10 civil lawsuits, 20 locations. Each one of those has a temporary restraining order. We have 10.
Been issued in every case.
Yes, sir.
PROs.
Every time we file a case, we immediately go to court, ask for the restraining order. We get the restraining order. We have settled. 4 of those stores have shut down. We have settled a couple of those. We're about to settle Katz's, which involved 9 smoke shops. So Katz's was our first case, which was a year ago.
I'm sorry, what's that name?
Cats, K-A-T-Z. If you go out Southwest Freeway, you see one just before you get to Buffalo Speedway. It's one of their stores. But again, there's 2 aspects of it. Taking the money is the reason these people do these things, sell this kind of substance. So we want to make sure we take the money. But again, the real goal is to end the horrible results that taking this substance can have on people, especially young people.
The
meaning the juries and the people of Harris County.
When did that happen, by the way? How long ago was that?
June 1st.
How big a dent do you believe that this effort has made in the availability of Kush? And I think that's both for you, Mr. Ryan, and also maybe for Sergeant Todd. I mean, is it any harder today to get this than it was May 1st?
Well, I'll let the police speak to that. I think, unfortunately, this is one of these things that we're seeing more of it, but possibly that is because now people are becoming more aware of it. The police really have ramped up their efforts at the Harris County level. Out in the county, the sheriff and the constables are also working very hard on this, because I think, again, if you'd asked 3-4 years ago, Kush, most people wouldn't even know what that means. But now, because it is so pervasive and it's so easy to sell, you go to one of these stores undercover, and the police can speak to this, and you ask for it, they reach under and bring out a little package, $25 or $50, and a transaction's been made. And again, there's also no consistency in how this Kush is made. So some of it may have no effect whatsoever, but some of it can kill. So it is very, very dangerous, I think. So there's been more and more emphasis from every aspect of law enforcement. Please.
You said 58 locations in ID.
Yes.
Are those all in the city of Houston?
No, there are some in the county as well.
Okay, so this is for the whole county. You're not
Yes.
looking at
Correct.
Sergeant, can you address that question about availability and how, whether you believe this extra enforcement has made it tougher to get, more expensive to get?
Sure, I believe it has. The more we investigate these stores and the more we go into each store and seize the products that they have that are illegal, the word gets out. And we're finding that the more I start going to the stores, the harder it is to get. In fact, in these cases, the more we worked the stores, the more we took their Kush, they stopped selling the Kush but continue to sell other illegal drugs. And the more you guys cover it and make it a public issue, then each store owner starts to realize this is something that they need to stop doing.
Of those 58 stores, do you believe that there are more out there that are selling Kush, or do you believe you have a pretty good handle on selling?
That's a hard question to answer. Obviously, I believe there are more. We identify them through various routes like we talked about earlier. The Stop Drugs Houston website, if you guys could publish that, as well as we have a 4-No-Dope hotline that's on our website. Patrol officers will come to us and say, here's investigation. So each time we get one of those locations, we add them to our list and start targeting those.
Let me just say, for a long time, the focus was simply on the users. That's what people saw, and those were the villains. We are focusing on those who are selling and distributing this stuff. That's where I want the emphasis to be, to cut off the supply. You cut off the supply, you reduce the number of transients who are using it, you reduce the number of panhandlers in our city who are trying to get money to pay for it. One leads to the other. So the word that I want to go out is that what I am saying to HPD and law enforcement, let's focus on those who are bringing this stuff into these communities and selling it. And when they're selling it from under the counter, they know exactly what they are selling, okay? And we are coming after them. So we're not just going to be focusing on those 16 and others who are falling out in Herman Park. We are focusing on those entities who certainly know what they're doing, who are selling this nonsense, earning their dollars, going home, and leaving the problem for everybody else to fix, okay? They are no longer off limits. They are clearly within our sights, and whatever resources we need, we're going to provide those resources to shut them down or to get this stuff out of these communities.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. Let me ask one last question. Aside from marketing, are any of these folks, the Dang brothers or anybody else you all are looking at, manufacturing this stuff? It's not hard to make.
Well, we don't believe they were manufacturing, they were getting it, but again, we're still in an active investigation. You may want to go back to 3 months ago when I was standing with the U.S. Attorney in our international case on Kush, where we got 9.5 tons, and that was a manufacturer. I'll just tell you, Captain Brown's here, with the HIDA, we have noticed Kush has gone up the last couple of years, but what the district attorney said, thanks to the law changes, that's allowed us, and as you can see, our partners here, to go after it more this year. So that's why we really got into it, and we're spending much more time. Jeremy just came from the North Division, so we've added more people who have differential response training so that we can go into these stores under an administrative violation and see what they have. And that's been very effective. but we're still looking for the manufacturers. And I can't tell you, but I'll just tell you, we're going after the manufacturers.